Hello, my name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. So, I got this idea from Sam at Thoughts on Tomes. She did a video, I think recently, about 5 books that she would give to her younger self. And I just thought that just really struck a chord with me for some reason. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, should I go the serious route, or should I go the fiction kind of things that I wish I'd gotten to sooner? And I do have one of those, but mostly I felt this was a good opportunity to highlight some nonfiction, and just like, I don't know, it just gave me sort of like an introspective moment of like, oh, what would you tell, like if I could talk to my 16-year-old self, what would I want to give her to read, and like what would I want to tell her? So yeah, this is like mostly serious, I hope that's okay, but I just thought I would share the 5 books I picked, and yeah, I would definitely be interested to hear from other people. I would love to see this be something more widely done. I think this was like a Top 5 Wednesday kind of thing, but anyway, I would love to see more people do it. So let's just dive in. Okay, the first book that I would unquestionably pick, because this was, I think, the only of these that was actually published when I was 16, and that is Are Women Human by Dorothy Sayers. Also, spoilers, the answer to this question is yes. This book is, I think, the one that I would most give somebody who was wanting sort of just like a very introductory argument about why feminism is important and why it matters, and why it's just right and true. So for context, I grew up going to a very fundamentalist school, and I got a lot of really, in my opinion, very destructive lessons about what it meant to be a woman from going to school there. And I'm lucky that my father actually he's gone now, but he was quite a feminist, and he would very actively combat some of these things, because neither of my parents are fundamentalists. It's a weird thing. Anyway, so I'm glad that I didn't have these ideas wholly unchallenged, but it wasn't until I read this in my first year of grad school when I was 25 that I really, for the first time, because I was very attracted to a lot of feminist ideas, but I felt like it was bad, and it made me like a bad Christian, and it made me like selfish, basically, and essentially part of why I even ended up going to grad school was I was having like an existential crisis in my job, because like I was so valued for being like smart and confident and loud and like assertive. I was praised for that in my job, and like told that that was so bad in my private life, and it was creating real tension in me. And when I read this book, I just started crying, because I realized like, oh, I've always felt like I was punished for being a woman, because I am smart, I am loud, I am, kind of sassy or whatever. And like, my whole life, the message has been that makes me bad. And I think I just had this real moment of clarity of like, that's who I am. And like, just the way that men are allowed to have different personalities and different strengths and weaknesses, so are women. And like, there's nothing sinful or bad about that. So this book just like really helped me break through that, and just gave me some real clarity as to what I've been feeling. I remember also, just like a random side note, talking about RuPaul's Drag Race and how it changes lives. I was watching season 5 Untucked of RuPaul's Drag Race, and Alyssa Edwards was talking about, she was crying, kind of talking about her religious experiences, because she's from Texas, and she was talking about like, every night I would pray that God would make me not gay. And I just started crying, because I was like, girl, I was praying that God would make me more feminine. Like, we're just like all of us are in the back of the church just like trying to be something we're not. And like, I just don't, if you believe in God, I just don't believe that that's, if he made you a certain way, that's how he wants you to be. So anyway, this book, like, really, I wish I had read as a 16-year-old, because I think it would have saved me like 9 years of a lot of angst that I did not need to go through. Hunger by Roxane Gay and Why We Get Fat by Gary Taubes. Neither of these were available when I was 16, so I could not have read these, but I think I've alluded to this before, but I struggled for a very long time with disordered eating, as a result of a number of things, including a sexual assault, and that was just something I really didn't know what to do with, especially in the religious context I was in, and really not feeling like I had space to talk about that. So this book made me feel so seen. I read this in 2017 when it first came out, and I just wept, because I was like, she has put so many things on the page that I think fat people want normal people to know about how we're treated, what that feels like, why we might be in the situation that we're in, and just like, I just felt like this book is just undeniable. Like, when you read this, I think you would have to be some somewhat of a callous monster to not have at least some level of empathy for it. And I think 16-year-old me would have felt very seen by this, and I think I could have sparked a lot more insight into why I was in some destructive patterns I was in if I had had something like this to read. And then similarly, like, I wish that I had read this, because this would have explained, like, why when I was being good and doing everything I was supposed to be doing, why I was still struggling with weight, or like why it was triggering a lot of disordered patterns or whatever. I think this would have helped me understand that, like, things that I had been told were the right way to do things weren't necessarily the right way to do things for me. I mean, I'm not going to generalize to everyone, but like the things that he talks about in this book, like, have literally changed my life over the last year. I think I'm going to do a video in October about some of that, but this book, like, changed my life, and I just wish 16-year-old me had known some of this and had not had to feel so much like shame about doing things right and still not having the outcomes that I was supposed to be having. So yeah, I wish that this had been available. And then my fourth choice was Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And the reason I picked this, because I was like, I want to pick something that I wish 16-year-old me had sort of had their worldview expanded on. And I was like, I think probably something around like either class or race would be appropriate. And I think that this memoir is really confrontational. Some of the ideas in it, especially to people of certain backgrounds, are going to be really hard to swallow and really extreme. Now that I've read more about sort of like the history of racist ideas, like something like Stand for the Beginning, for instance, or a number of other books sort of about the history, like racial history, about kind of theories of justice and a lot of other things. I mean, this isn't that shocking to me anymore, but I think 16-year-old me would have really benefited from hearing somebody talk in first person about what it means to be Black in America and how that materially impacts people's day-to-day safety, day-to-day ability to be prosperous, and day-to-day ability to just like be left alone. Do you know what I mean? So I think that this would have been because it's a memoir, I think that this would have really like hit me in the feels. I mean, it takes nothing for me to cry, so like this would have really hooked me in emotionally, I think, and like really expanded my kind of social imaginary, basically, of what it is to be Black in this country. And I think just impacted my ability to have empathy for people who, like, again, literally just want to be free to live their lives the way that I'm free to live my life. Yeah, I think that this just would have really expanded my worldview a lot. And then finally, I was like, I want to end this on somewhat of a lighter note. And I was thinking, like, fiction-wise, like, where do I wish that I had gone a little earlier in my life? And I decided to go with Kate Daniels. I mean, it's not really a radical pick. Again, this wasn't available when I was 16, so I could not have read this. I think that what this represents to me is a willingness to lean more into fantasy and like urban paranormal fantasy kind of things, because like I really love that. And also a willingness to expand my feelings about romance, because I was very like, romance is anti-woman nonsense. It's just all pulp. It's all terrible. It's not good quality, whatever. I was very like against it. I was a very smug lit fit reader in my teens. So I think that, especially because I did love Harry Potter so much, that was still going on at the time. I think like this could have been sold to me, or something like this could have been sold to me as like, hey, here's another kind of fantasy book that is also somewhat set in our world. Like maybe you would like this. So yeah, I wish that I had kind of come to that version of fantasy a little earlier, and this level of like kind of a romance, and like opening my mind up a little bit to being more open to that as a valid genre. Okay, I feel like that was a really heavy video. I hope that was okay. But I was very intrigued by that kind of, for whatever reason, it just really resonated with me when Sam did that video. I'll link that video below so you guys can check that out. And yeah, I would encourage other people to do this, because I think it was a kind of introspective moment for me to pick just 5 books that I would give to like 16-year-old me. I think that will do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. And I think that will do it. I hope you're having a really lovely day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!